The war at sea was a somewhat useful part of the American Revolutionary War, and it was full of death and destruction, and it was brutal. Before we do that, let's talk about more important stuff. Back before 1492, a ton of Indians lived in the colonies, separated from everyone else, and just sort of killed each other for their gods. So Christopher Columbus came over and murdered all of them just because. After he died of his heart failing, other people stayed there but did not have much, so they ate rats. And each other. But eventually more people came over and made the place even better for everyone, except the Indians. Fast forward to 1764, where Britain wants some cash dollars, so they're like, hey, colonies, we are going to take some money from you, don't worry about it. The colonies thought, that sucks, and said, hey, Britain, could you stop taxing us? And Britain said, no. Please, asked the colonists again. No, said Britain, with more aggression this time. The colonies were angry and decided to rebel, and that eventually led to here, where they started a full-out war.
Before November 1775, the colonies were more interested in land fights, where there were a few naval skirmishes. The biggest example was when Britain thought this pirate ship had illegal stuff, so they went up to them and said, hey, you should, give us your ship with the bad stuff on it. How about no? They said, while injuring 3 of them and overruling their ship. But the very first official one was when Britain threw a pebble at them and said, hey, stupid, we're gonna send ships to kill you. And the colonists said, well, we could also fight, you know. So in November of 1775, they created their navy and hired Essex Hopkins, first followed by these 4 guys to man various ships. They also hired more people and named their first 5 ships very intimidating things, such as the Fly and the Wasp.
Before going all out, the colonists wanted to dip their toe in the waters, so they sent Admiral Hopkins, as George Washington lovingly called him, to go fight the British at Chesapeake Bay, which is here. Hopkins was pretty scared of this area, so he took a quick detour to the Bahamas to enjoy a nice vacation, where he found some British folks and attacked the British port of Nassau. He got some nice things and wanted to bring them back, so he started to, but the ships were a little heavy, which made him go slow, so he stopped by a nearby island and stole 2 ships for more space. Essex's son, John Hopkins, thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I fought some British ships? So he threw a grenade at one that kept an eye on him for quite a while, and after a 6-hour battle commenced. The boats were so heavy that 2 of them just sort of drifted around while more came to attack. They ended up losing, which made the Navy look cowardly and weak, because 1 British guy died while 13 colonists died, which was bad for their image. So Congress got angry and called many of them cowards and losers, and had Essex fired for his teenage-like decisions. This wasn't a great start to their fight in the ocean, so they were in need for a miracle.
Thankfully, they did when the Kingfisher started stalking Nancy when it was trying to bring stuff to its bay on June 29, 1776. This guy was like, hey, we need to make sure they're safe and don't get killed by the stalker. So they set up a gargantuan wasp to keep on the lookout, and when Nancy came, they had it come to shore and started firing at the Kingfisher while they unloaded tons of cargo, like food and gunpowder, which one guy mentioned and said, let's blow them up with this after the stuff is off the boat. So they finished with their activities, and they put tons of gray dust on the ship before running away, and the Kingfisher was like, oh, they left their ships. Ha, they suck. So they boarded and started cheering before they were blown up. So they took everything they put on the shore and threw it on the Wasp before it flew away to continue its expedition. All but 7 of the British died from the big explosion, while all the colonists were warm and cozy.
The British still did not take the colonists seriously, and the colonists saw this, so they attempted to attack at their weak spots, and it was actually kind of successful. On April 24th, 1778, a giant fight broke out among John Paul Jones and George Burden, because Jones was sent over to Britain to capture a port, which he failed, and then he decided to attack Drake, and also failed, but hadn't given up, so he decided he wanted to go fight them again. Though the Drake beat them the first time, it was kind of scared this time because their acting gunner was in the hospital, their master mate was sick, their boat Swan died a few days earlier, their lieutenant died a couple days ago, and the captain was way too old to do anything. But they decided to fight them anyway. They started their 1-hour battle, which was pretty balanced for about 2 seconds before the Ranger shot John Burden and took it over. Lol, I'm dead, said George Burden. This sure is a burden for me. Burden then died a horrific and painful death. The British panicked and sent reinforcements, but it was too late because John Paul Jones ran away like Swiper from Dora. 3 colonists were killed and 5 were wounded, but 5 died on the British side and 20 were wounded.
Britain got super duper angry from this battle, so they started protecting areas like this more and more and put stricter rules on their naval battles. But the colonists were encouraged by this and started to feel their power in the war. During this time, you also had privateers that would tap the ships on their shoulders, and while they were looking in the opposite way, would steal their money, kill their men, and take their ship. Then these guys would go back to their local bar and tell their stories of patriotism. This actually became pretty useful when it came to smaller tasks, like capturing the HMS Savage, which was a big ship that the privateers just sort of crashed into and destroyed. Whoops, they said. You'll never guess who also hates Britain. That's right, the French. The French helped the colonists in some battles, like the Battle of Martinique. But don't be confused. None of these battles really mattered at all because it led up to the Battle of Chesapeake Bay, which also had some foreign help. So the colonies were happy, and everyone was happy. Except no one was happy.
This battle took place towards the tail end of the Revolutionary War on September 5th, 1781, which actually caused the forfeit of the British Army at Yorktown and the beginning of the colonies as an independent nation. So that's good. George Washington needed more boats, guns, and money, so they said, hey, come over here and give us stuff to France. Okay, said France. So they brought over 30 top-of-the-line ships and a whole batch of other smaller ships just because. The French changed the direction they were going because of British ships that would get in their way, and ended up planning on going to Chesapeake Bay. When the colonists learned they were going there, they thought, hey, we could go a little west of where they are landing and we'll surround an important British fort that we could destroy. So they moved to that area and waited for the French to arrive. The British also heard about this, so the leader of that area went to another place and asked him to help with the issue. So that guy went to another place where they sent ships to go around and shoot the French when they arrived. The French were a bit early, though, and started offloading materials before they saw the British ships coming into the bay. They thought it was other French ships that they had requested to follow them, but then they soon realized it was British and made a mad dash to get on the ships and kill the British. The battle lasted for 2 hours and killed 90 British and 209 French, but actually swung in the French's favor when the British ran away like wussies and they took Chesapeake Bay, which cut off the British from requesting more troops, which they needed since a lot of theirs were either really tired or dead or just kind of wandering to places and seeking out their own ambitions. This also let Washington get more supplies for the Battle of Yorktown that was about to happen close by, all of which led to the British surrender at Yorktown.
So yay! America is officially a nation on its own and the war is over.
Well, not really, because there's still a lot of battles that happened afterwards, and Britain wouldn't let go and started to resent the colonies, and they had a rough start to their own new nation, and the economy is failing, and I don't know if Donald Trump will make America great again, but whatever.